We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order on time. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Good to see all your faces once again, remotely, distantly. Some of us are wearing ties, which is super impressive. I think those are the ones of people who are in the office. Oh, but Stanley, look at you.
Oh, I know. I'm all decked out with the label in the background and everything.
Looking good. Okay, so with that, we can go ahead and establish a quorum. Jessica, do we have everybody here? Enough of us?
Let's do roll call and see who we have.
Okay,
So
let's
you'll go ahead and mute yourself if you're not speaking. That way we don't have the ambient feedback noise. That'd be great. Thank you. Okay, so I'm just going to go down the list of directors, and when I get to, if I've seen you, I'll call your name. At the end, if I did not call you, if you'll let me know, that way I can mark you here. So I see Jill, John Graham, Val Carr, Stan Vanderwerf, Cammie, Holly, Dick, Norm, William Shaw.
Here.
Andy, staff of member government. What board members did I not call yet?
Sharon Thompson.
Hello, Sharon.
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID.
Hello, Craig. All right, anybody else that I didn't call that is on the line? I think we got everybody. So I think you're good to go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, I think you're all right.
Okay, thank you, Jessica.
Quick.
Just a reminder, please go on to mute if you are not speaking. I am hearing some background noise. It makes it difficult to conduct our business. So once again, good morning.
I don't know how to mute.
Okay, before we move on to agenda approval, I would like to just take 1 minute to recognize past board member and past mayor of Woodland Park, Neil Levy. As we all know, Neil died recently, and his service was this last weekend. And I think all of us knew Neil pretty well. We know him to be a great guy, and he will be terribly missed. And at Andy's request, I just thought we would hold a brief moment of silence in Neil's honor. So please do that now. Okay, thank you everyone for doing that, taking that moment. I think we all needed it, and I appreciate Andy for having that idea for all of us. Okay, if no one has anything else, we can move on to approval of our agenda for this month, August 12th, almost mid-month. If you've reviewed the agenda, I would appreciate a motion to approve it.
This is Dick Elsner. I move to approve.
Thank you, Dick.
I'll second.
Thank you, Norm. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. We are on to item 3, which is public comments. I don't know if we have anybody on the line today outside the board, but now is when you can speak for up to 3 minutes on any item that is not on today's agenda. Is there anyone who would like to speak? Okay.
And Madam Chair, if there isn't anybody to speak, we did have a couple of staff recognitions that we wanted to make as well under public comment.
Okay.
If there's nobody from the public, we can jump into that briefly. We have an opportunity to recognize staff members that have anniversaries on 5-year increments. And we have 3 of them that we'd like to recognize this morning that had anniversaries in July and August. And I think a couple of them are on the line. But I want to recognize Barbara Sigmund, Lucy Jacobs, and Michelle McGill. They all just passed their 5-year anniversary here with PPACG, and all have been just really amazing contributors to all the great work that's happening here, especially now. It's been evident for the 5 years they've been here, but even more so the past couple of months with all the challenges we're facing in this really difficult environment. So just a couple of words on each. Barbara Sigmund, she's in our AAA as a case manager, Medicare specialist. And Barbara in particular has been doing a really outstanding job doing a lot of outreach to our rural communities, folks outside our urbanized area, to let them know about AAA services and Medicare needs that can meet their needs and help them age gracefully at home. So really appreciate all the great outreach that Barbara's been doing in that regard. Lucy Jacobs, she coordinates our volunteers within the AAA. And we have just an amazing cadre of volunteers that just are amazing to help us keep everything operating within the AAA. Obviously, they've had to take a little bit of hiatus with COVID-related issues going on, but they're still engaged and still helping us out in any way they can, whether it's reassurance calls or other outreach, and really super appreciate that. Lucy also, over the past 2 years, I think, took on production of our PPACG's bestseller, our yellow book. We don't sell it, but if we did sell it, it would still be our bestseller, but just amazing distribution that really summarizes all the AAA services available for seniors throughout the region. So yeah, thank you, Cindy, for holding that up. Yeah, so super contributions from Lucy there as well. And then finally, Michelle McGill. I don't know that Michelle was able to join us this morning, but Michelle works for Casey in our finance department. And Michelle has just been amazing, especially in this difficult time, making sure that we can still get the bills paid in our finance department, that we can get employees paid, that we get reimbursed from the state and others for grants that help keep the trains running on time here. So really want to say kudos to the three of them, Barbara, Lucy, and Michelle, for their outstanding contributions and well-deserved recognition this morning.
Thank you, Andy. I think it means a lot that you're taking the time to recognize your employees. And Barb, Lucy, and Michelle are obviously worthy. It's also great for us to hear what's going on and who's doing what, and that we have a bestseller. I mean, that's a really big deal. So if any of you are on the line today, congratulations. And we are really happy that you are serving at PPACG.
Madam Chair, if I might make a recommendation, everybody turn your microphones on and let's give them a round of applause.
Sounds great, Stan. Okay.
All right, let's do it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I haven't done that before. I like that. I'm going to use that again. Okay. Any other recognitions, Andy? Okay. Okay, then we are on to our consent agenda. Item number 4, as you can see, we have approval of minutes from our July 8th meeting, summary of financial and membership appointments to the RAC and the TAC. If anyone wants to move any of those off, you may. Otherwise, I would appreciate a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Elster, I would move to.
I'll second John Graham, Manitou.
I'm not sure who made the motion. Was it Dick?
Yeah, I started and then someone else talked, so.
Okay, I appreciate everybody wanting to support everything. Okay, so Dick, and it was John? Manitou,
yes, that's
John?
correct. Yes.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Okay, well, thank you, everyone. We are now on to our action items. The first one being the Multimodal Options Fund, MMOF, the project approval for round 2. And I think Catherine will be leading this.
Yes. Good morning, Catherine
Good morning.
Senior Transportation Planner at PPACG. So this is the round 2 for multimodal option funds. A couple months ago, we brought this round 1 to you for approval. And now we're bringing round 2 to you. So for the multimodal options funds, for those that might not have heard for round 1, it's Senate bill or state funds that were included for multimodal projects in the state. And each MPO and different areas around the state were allocated funds. As the PPACG MPO, we were allocated about $6.5 million for our area. And most of those funds were allocated in round 1. However, we had more money available than was requested. And so they we elected to do a second round of call just in case, and for the $698 and $717 that were remaining from our allocation. And so we did a call for projects, and we received 2 applications. One was from El Paso County, the I-25 GAP project. This is to help the El Paso County local match portion of that larger project. And so this would be eligible under the pieces of the project that are for transit and the multimodal portions. And they requested the full amount. And then the second application received was from Lewis Palmer School District for their Safe Routes to School, which are federal funds, their sideway and trail project. They requested $50,000 there. And this is to supplement some cost overruns they had for the project. So most of the project is funded under federal and some of their local funds, but this would help with some of those overruns that they had for the project. And so with TAC members, we held a project selection workshop to kind of recommend what would be programmed with these funds. And the recommendation is to fully fund the Lewis Palmer School District at $50,000, and then the remainder would go to the I-25 El Paso County GAP project local match portion for $648,717. And so TAC and CAC both recommend approval of these round 2 projects.
Thank you, Catherine. Are there questions from the board for Catherine? Comments? No comments. Okay, well, I will just say we did discuss this in the executive committee meeting, and while I am going to go ahead and support the funds for El Paso County, I do think that this award dilutes the idea of multimodal funds. Trying to pay a match for a road that is probably 99% single occupancy vehicles is not really a multimodal project, but I understand the county is struggling to find funds and to honor its commitments here. So this one time I will support this. If there are no other comments, then I would appreciate a motion.
I would move approval of these items.
Thank you, Holly.
Normal, second.
Thank you, Norman. Is there any further comment before we vote?
This is Commissioner Stan. I'd just like to express my appreciation to you, Madam Chair, for your willingness to go forward with this, and also to express your reservations as well. That's also important for all of us to hear it. Thank you.
Thank you, Stanley. I appreciate our relationship between the city and the county. So, okay, if no other comment, then all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Are there any nays? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. I have to say, I love how quickly this meeting is going so far. So let's see if we can continue to motor on, no pun intended. Okay, excuse me?
I said, just wait.
Okay, second item is the AAA fiscal year 2021 contract recommendations. Is that Jody?
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair and Board of Directors. It's good to be with you. This is Jody Barker, Director of the Pikes Peak Area Agency on Aging. As you know, every year our Technical Review Subcommittee of the Regional Advisory Council reviews the requests and our requests for proposals from providers. And just to give you a brief summary of the process this year, we had two providers decide to drop off this year in our process. Those were somewhat COVID related. Their services were not able to continue going forward in the usual manner. Due to COVID, they've decided to focus their efforts in other areas of their processes and business. But we did have 2 new agencies step up to become providers under the Pikes Peak Area Agency on Aging service provision, which is really exciting because it continues to meet needs of seniors in different areas. This year we had a total request of $6,199,251.77. that is far and above the funds that we will receive from the state and federal under the Older Americans Act and Older Coloradans Act. We, in fact, just this week received our funding determination from the state, and we're not too far off, but we were able to make recommendations to support $5.295 million in services across all of these providers. That leaves us just a tiny cushion between what we were allotted versus what was spent of about $60,000. But we do have CARES Act funding that we will be accessing this year, a little bit as additional funding. As you know, under the state budget cuts earlier this spring, we did realize about $200,000 in cuts to our region. And so we had to be very careful about this, but like I said, we have CARES Act funding, which is separate from the county CARES Act. This is specifically provided to AAAs from the Administration on Community Living's portion of the main federal CARES Act fund. So we have in front of you, let's see, Jess, if you wouldn't mind scrolling down just a little bit, the recommendations. The recommendations from the Technical Review Subcommittee to the RAC of these funds and contracts. If approved today, we will be on schedule to begin contract September 1. These represent a 12-month budget, but a 10-month contract. The reason for that is that the state determined to activate their holdover clause, which pushed us off from a July 1 start to a September 1 start. However, fortunately, we are still getting the 12-month funding for the 10-month period. And so these on average represent about a 16% increase on average to many of the providers based on that adjustment. So I do have a member of the RAC. She is actually our new chair. Our former chair had to step down. And so I'd like to invite Dr. B. Babbitt, who is our new chair of the RAC, and as well as a member of the TRS for a brief statement, and then we'll open it to questions.
Great,
Dr. Babbitt, are you on?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Jody. Well, the RAC recognizes the heightened need of seniors in our communities during the COVID-19 outbreak and the creative manner in which AAA and our providers have responded to those needs. The allocations were thoughtfully considered by the TRS committee, and the proposal before you was given unanimous approval by the RAC. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Babbitt. I'm happy to entertain any questions if there are any.
Yeah, this is Dick Elsner.
Yes, sir.
Park County.
Yes, sir.
Park County Senior Coalition, of course, has gone through all kinds of issues over the past year, and I really do appreciate you guys taking a look and saying, you know, with the changes we've made, we are going to receive quite a lot of funding, which I really appreciate. I'm sorry I wasn't at the work session. I had another legislative meeting all day Friday, and I would have brought this up. I do have two questions on what is going to the Park County seniors. One of them is the nutrition ed and home delivered meals. Did they really ask for just $4?
Yes, that's an odd point in our contract process. That's actually subcontracted out to Silver Key Senior Services nutritionist, and so it's really more of a contractual fill in the blank. They work directly with Silver Key Senior Services nutritionist for that education. And so, yes, it's just, it really is just a space holder, but they got 100% of their funding request.
Yes, well, that was good. The next one is the homemaker vouchers. I'm kind of curious, is there a specific reason why they requested 50,000 and received nothing?
Yes, sir. That we're going to go back into a little bit of history. As you know, under previous executive director, that program was dropped somewhat suddenly during my predecessor's time. The AAA staff worked diligently to get that up and running so that the Park County seniors did not lose access to that service. Our staff works with Invita or Disability Services, as it's listed here in the contracts, to provide homemaker services. This year, with the transition of the executive director going now to the interim executive director, I did make the recommendation on 2 points to the TRS, and there was a great deal of discussion, as you might imagine, but it was unanimously suggested to the RAC. There was additional conversation there, and it was received unanimously. My recommendations were to not ramp up this program right now under Park County, simply to allow the transition to work its course. As you know, the interim executive director is actually former board president at Park County Senior Coalition, and she has been taking on a lot of training to really start from scratch, to learn the systems, learn the processes. We have been providing some additional technical as well as nonprofit level type support from some of my staff. The other was the other recommendation for this withholding is simply to allow a proper transition when Park County is ready. Because of the way it was dropped a year and a half ago, there was a significant time lapse in services for Park County seniors. I would rather approach this when Park County is ready, that we approach it in a thoughtful and planned reopening for Park County. Under our current major disaster declaration, we do have the option, if in say 6 months or even within this contract period, they determined that they were able to bring that program back on, we could transfer balance of funds back to Park County to allow them to resume that program. So between the transition of staffing and wanting to make sure that it's a considered and planned approach for our Park County residents, that is why we made that recommendation.
Okay, I really appreciate it. And I want to go on record as thanking Jody and Andy and Casey. Those that are outside of Park County but don't know anything about what went on with our senior coalition and the absolute mess that it was, almost to a point where PPACG wasn't going to fund any of it because the senior coalition couldn't keep things straight and couldn't get their billings in on time and all of that, which is why we ended up with the change in management. And I really, really appreciate you guys for all of the work that you put in to help our senior coalition get started up again in a manner that I think is really going to help Park County. I like the idea that if they aren't ready for it, don't give them the money, but as they ramp up and get ready for it, hopefully there'll be some money available so they can start the other services. But I really do appreciate everything you guys have done.
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Stan with a question.
Go ahead, Stan.
Yes. Hey, Jody and the team there, I just also want to express my appreciation. I guess I had not really understood previously the breadth of where you send this funding to. And there's a lot of great organizations on this list. So this is just really very informative for me, and I'm interested in supporting it. I do have one question. The Colorado Springs Independence Center is also listed at 0, at least on my list. And if you might provide an explanation for that.
Certainly, yes, sir. They were actually one of the 2 who decided to drop the request this year. In the past, the Colorado Springs Independence Center has provided in-person evidence-based exercise programs. As you might imagine, just from the name of the program, that's nearly impossible to do right now under the COVID circumstances. They determined, in fact, at the beginning of the process back in March, during the initial governor's stay-at-home orders, they determined that they were not going to be able to fulfill their portion of the funding requirements and their contract. They actually came to us and asked us to withdraw their funding to be used by other providers who had additional needs. At the time of the RFP process, they determined that they needed to move their focus in other areas of their outreach, and so that's why they determined not to apply. Since we're on that same vein, the other organization that dropped this year, we did leave them in the list simply for transparency here, and that was Special Kids, Special Families. They contracted with us for funding for their internal transportation program to bring disabled adults from home into their day centers. They actually were able to transfer their funding under the Major Disaster Declaration this spring from transportation, since no one was allowed to use that for a while. They requested their funding this spring for the completion of their contract to go toward their mental health supports and counseling programs. And so big kudos for them to realize, for realizing the needs and acting on that. However, at this time, they determined that while they're now able to provide transportation, they just don't need the level of funding from us. They are able to fulfill that in other ways. So they also decided to drop off this year.
Thank you, Jody. That's great. And I think leaving it on the list is wonderful. It sounds to me like they remain great partners. And actually, I appreciate the fact that, they even offered that, they needed to go to 0 in this case because it just wasn't going to work for them. I do want to mention one additional thing, Jody, and it may be that you guys may be working regularly with the Pikes Peak Workforce Center, but if you're not, I do recommend you give them a call with kind of the challenges we have with schools going on. And this isn't necessarily an aging issue, but it might still be an interesting conversation to have, or maybe for Andy Gunning and you to have the conversation. With the changes in the schools, some getting delayed, we've got daycare problems that we're going to be having in our community. And the Workforce Center is working on processes to ramp up training so we can have more qualified daycare workers, so that with the delays in the schools, the kids can be taken care of and the parents can still get back to work. So in some cases that'll apply in your business area, but in other cases it'll be in other parts.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We're actually in conversations with folks from the Workforce Center as it relates to training young adults for the home care field because we're seeing an increased need there. So those conversations, while not identical, are certainly on our radar. So I appreciate that.
Great. Glad to hear that conversation's going on. That's what I needed to hear.
My pleasure. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Hi, Jody. Norm Steen, Teller County. We all know that our seniors especially had a real challenge during this COVID. A lot of isolation. I continually hear stories of family members not able to meet with, especially those in senior living centers. Not all of our solutions are dollar related. A lot of them are related to contact and to family connections and to providing that more human services, not just financial. Could you just in a moment address some of the things we're not able to do during this era of COVID that perhaps we should be thinking about as local governance, of how we can serve our seniors outside of a budget? Programs maybe you've thought about, laid awake about, that we can't execute because of COVID.
Yes, I appreciate that. In fact, I wrote an email to myself. It didn't go anywhere, but just had to get it off my chest on Friday after a meeting, because our long-term care situation is atrocious right now. That's not a very professional term, but I'm not really sure what else to call it. As you know, we host the long-term care ethics committee discussions every first Friday of the month. And one of the common themes, the common threads of conversation, is that the total lockdown of long-term care communities. And when we talk about long-term care, you want to think in the area of assisted livings and nursing homes or skilled nursing facilities. The total lockdown of those communities have created an environment of social isolation that is so detrimental to folks' health that staff members are being told by those individuals that they would rather hug their families and die of COVID than to live the way that they're living right now. And unfortunately, what we need, and there are conversations in the works, but we need more and more people to reach out to higher level legislators to say, the cure, quote unquote, is far, far worse than what we expected. It's become an unexpected or an unplanned reality that where we thought that was the safest thing to do is now causing folks to lose hope, to become depressed. In many cases, they are not allowed to leave their rooms. They have to have their meals. I do know that there are some facilities, some communities who are taking extra steps to have their patios expanded so they can get people out in the sunshine. There are opportunities where lunches, meal programs are expanded across the schedule of the day to allow social distancing in the dining rooms. But all of this takes a toll, and not just the residents, but ultimately the staff. In some cases, there are staff who are leaving because they cannot serve their residents the way that they feel they should. There's just a really, really terrible disconnect between reality of working and living in a community and those who are making those decisions. I will say that our local ombudsman, lead ombudsman, and the state level ombudsman have been working on a task force to make recommendations. Now that we're seeing those circumstances become so egregious that they're making recommendations to the highest levels within the HD, the Colorado Department of Health and Human Services, and others that make those decisions to start retracting and making changes to those decisions. Because frankly, if you'd rather die than not see anyone, we've got a major problem. And so that's the one area. I will say on the there's Senior Citizens Days coming up August 21st. Take a moment and buy a package of cards and mail them to a facility. If you don't know what those facilities are in your local area, we would be happy to help get those names and addresses. But any kind of contact, even if it's a card, is going to be helpful for those folks to realize that they're not lost, they're not forgotten. That's probably the one area that we cannot get into personally by our ombudsman staff. They're having to do everything remotely. We're taking extra steps to produce flyers to get into every single resident's hands to make sure that they know that they're not forgotten, that we're still here. They can still pick up the phone and call. We're making additional, instead of a surprise visit, we're making surprise calls. And so our staff is doing everything that they can, working on some recommendations from the state as well as around the nation, some ideas about how to increase those outreach. But that is the #1 concern. Every AAA director I speak with, our hands are tied right now. There's just really nothing we can do. So I would encourage, if we have opportunity to raise this to our highest levels, that we do that.
Madam Chair, I have I'm sorry.
Madam Chairman, Commissioner Williams.
Jody, thank you.
I'm sorry, Norm, are you done? Okay, I think I heard Holly.
Yes, so this is an ongoing
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
This is an ongoing problem, and I do believe our health department is putting together a specialized committee, but I would recommend that we consider 2 different directions on pursuing this. I think that our legislative committee should meet to start talking about the state legislature needs to address this, to find a way to make sure that these individuals have services, because I get complaints every day from people who cannot visit their family. And it's very upsetting to the family. It's very upsetting to the ones who can't visit. It goes both ways, and they need to find a way to address them. And then also, I would not think it would hurt us to write a letter and sign it and send it to both the health departments and the state health department and the governor, saying we need a solution for this problem. We need a specialized committee, because if we're in this virus for 2-3 years, we've got a real problem. And the solutions aren't coming out. There are some who allow you to meet them outside. And when I hear people who say, oh, I can go meet my mom outside, just not inside, I'm like, wow, you are so lucky, because there's so many that will not let their families inside the facility at all. And that's just, they need to find a creative way to allow it. And there's got to be a creative way somewhere.
And Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Stan. With regard to Holly's comments, completely agree. I think we do need to take or start thinking about legislative support. On the second one, I think there's one other thing that we need to do. We need to bring a team of PPACG with Jody, maybe a couple of our board members, and go visit the El Paso County Public Health Office and have a meeting about this issue. I have found them to be very, very flexible when they're presented with challenges. I know that they are concerned about this, but I think if we work together, we might find some proactive things that we can do that's more than what we're doing now. And also, if we have that meeting, they're going to be one of our advocates, and they agree with something we want to do. They're going to be one of our advocates going to CDPHE to try to get some relief. So I think we should take the action to have a no kidding real meeting with public health on behalf of the comments that Jody just brought up.
Thank you, Stan. So both Jessicas, can you take note of the legislative approach that Holly mentioned? I really like that. And then the partnership that we can face with the county and CDPHE. Let's see how we can move that forward too. Thank you, commissioners, for these good ideas.
This is on the follow-up list now.
Thank you, Jessica. Go ahead, Sharon.
Jody, do you have the cell phone numbers to reach out to the various legislative state representatives and senators yourself?
I have been working on that. Yes, I've been in contact with several, and we're drawing more into the conversations. There's a new subcommittee coming out of that ethics group that will also be working in that. So what I would like to do with these recommendations and requests, and with Jessica and Jess, we will serve to coordinate all of those efforts, so it's a single unified project. So we're not so we're all working in concert together.
Okay, yeah, it'd be really strong to get our El Paso people. I know it's an election year, but you know, they're still elected until January. So
That's right, Karen.
What's that?
I said, that's right.
And they're home. They're home right now, right? So hit them up on their cell phones. Okay.
Okay. Are there any other questions? If not, I would like.
I would just ask that we also include Teller and Park. I know Stan's comment was El Paso, but
agreed.
Yeah, please don't exclude the rural counties.
No, you're exactly right. Okay, if there are no more questions, I would appreciate a motion to approve the 2021 recommendations.
And this is Commissioner Stan. I'd like to make a motion to approve action item 5B, the AAA fiscal year 2021 contract recommendations.
Thank you, Stan.
Dick Elsner, I'll second.
Thank you, Dick. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any nays? Wonderful. Thank you, Jody. And we can move on to our last action item, Senior Transportation Mobility Coordination and Recommendations for FTA designated recipient status.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll kick this off. This is AAA Day today, I think, with the PPACG board. I'll turn it over to Jody and then also to Laura Cruz, who you met last month, our new mobility coordinator. But this is really part of an ongoing conversation that we've had over the past year with the board. I think this actually started a year ago this month, where we were approached by the city of Colorado Springs to consider consolidating all the contracts and coordination for senior transportation needs across the region under our umbrella. Just as a refresher, we fund, with contracts you just approved, we fund senior transportation through AAA for a number of service providers. And I think we fund about 55% of the rides in the region through those AAA contracts. And then MMT with money that they would receive from FTA with specifically a 5310 grant is the name of the grant. Between that and PPRK monies and other funds, they were funding about 45% of the rides for seniors throughout the region. So a little bit bifurcated, obviously. So there's been discussions over the past year to see what that would look like if that's all consolidated under PPACG. For maybe the first 6 months since we started these conversations, I'd say we kind of went through our due diligence process, if you will, just making sure that it would make sense to make this transition, make sure we have the resource capacity and the staffing capacity to take this on. And we found that we really could, that we thought it really makes a lot of sense. It fits within our mission, especially within the AAA. But we would need some help to coordinate that. So that's why we brought Laura Cruz on board as a mobility coordinator, a position that could be funded, that's being funded through the FTA funds that flow to the region. So I know we've had a number of brief conversations over the past year on this with the board, and we bring it to you today as an action item because we're ready to take the next step in making this reality. And the next step would basically be that with adoption of a resolution by the board, based on that direction, we would submit a letter to the governor requesting that we as PPACG become the official designated recipient of that FTA grant to coordinate for specialized transportation needs in the region. That said, and before I hand it over to Jody, I will say that we've got it on the agenda for today for action, and we're really ready to take the next step, and this will put us in line to basically effectuate this transition by the end of this year. We're ready to move forward, but if the board has additional questions, if you want to have us bring it back in September for final approval, that would not upset the timeline either. But given that, we're still, like I said, we're ready to move forward, pending questions that you may have today. So with that, let me hand it over to Jody, and Jody and Laura are going to get into a little more detail about what this would mean and what some of the next steps might be.
Thank you, Andy. Take it away, Jody.
Well, good morning again. Jody Barker, AAA Director. Yeah, I just wanted to give a little background. As you know, the 5310 funding really would align well with the work that we already do under our AAA funding from the state and our federal funding. This plan would really merge well with the AAA work, but also within our 4-year plan and the ultimate, the PPACG strategic plan. Of course, funding, as part of funding of the AAA rides, this is an area that would provide additional funding to specialized transit and would also meet some of the requirements and expectations under our regional 2045 plan. And so part of this process will also create some efficiencies, enable additional rides for seniors and disabled adults within our urbanized region. And we've been very fortunate to be able to work with Dr. Cog, as they are about 6 months to a year ahead of us in this process. And so we as a PPACG mobility team over the last few months, and now adding Laura Cruz into onto our staff, have been able to both borrow some of their information, some of their expertise, some of their experiences to lead these conversations. So with that in mind, I'm going to hand it off to Laura Cruz. She is our new mobility coordinator. She works within the AAA department to share a little bit more about the details of the next couple of steps, including this resolution and its impact to the process. Laura, are you available?
I am.
Great.
Thank you all for having me today. Just to give you a little more background on how we ended up where we are right now in trying to move forward in this process. So I've been doing a lot of research and trying to figure out where we started and how this applies to the AAA moving forward. And so back in 2018, there was a study amongst our seniors in our region that identified two major issues that seniors were facing. And transportation was one, as well as affordable housing. And so with that, a part of the 4-year plan for AAA was an emphasis on how do we create, more opportunities for seniors to access transportation. Seniors are now, with the affordable housing issue, having to live potentially further out from the city central because of the cost of living in the city central is much higher now. And so transportation becomes more and more of an issue as people have to move outside of the central city, which is traditionally where most of the services have been for years. And so in order for us to kind of move forward and help coordinate our efforts with the providers, this just makes sense. The 5310 funds are FDA funds. In our region, they have been administered by MMT. And one of the things that I want to bring up is this has been a coordinated effort and a supported effort by all parties who have been involved in this. So MMT is on board with us making this transition. Our providers that have been working both with AAA and MMT are on board with this transition. And so it has been moving pretty smoothly because of that coordination and support. And so next steps in the process we need to put together a plan of how we're going to administer these this funding that's available through FTA, and that's through a program management plan. And it's just a guide. It's a public-facing guide on how we're going to spend the funding, how are we going to work with service providers, what are our goals and objectives, utilizing this funding to help push transportation efforts forward. And so we are working on that program management plan. We've been able to, borrow, as Jody said, some great resources from Dr. Cog as well as MMT to help put this plan together. Our goal is to have a draft of the plan together by the end of August to present to the board. Once we present it to the board, if you guys approve us putting that out there to the public for public comment, we will be able to move forward in the process while having FTA assessing our plan at the same time as the public assessing our plan and making recommendations. So that's one step.
The other step that kind of goes hand in hand with that step is to get a board resolution approved today, just for us to move forward in the process. So we have to become a designated recipient by the governor's office in order for FTA just to bring us into the fold. And so our board resolution today that hopefully you guys will support. And if you have any questions, please feel free to bounce them off of me, Jody, and Andy. But once we get this together, we will put a letter together to send to the governor, along with some support letters from the providers that have been working with MMT as well as us through the AAA funding. And so we are hoping to transition these funds from MMT to us by the end of this year. And it's a new process for us, but it'll be a great opportunity for us to coordinate this funding available for, senior and specialized mobility. Just to kind of give you an idea of what the funding, amounts are, you're looking at typically around $500,000 a year that will come through FTA to help support this.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Are there questions from the board? I really appreciate all this, and I'm really excited to be moving this program forward.
Yeah, Jill, I
think Craig from MMT would like to speak.
Okay, Mr. Blewett, are you on the line today?
I am. Can you hear me okay?
We can. Welcome, Craig. Good to hear you.
Oh, thanks. Also on camera here. So I just wanted to just say, as Andy and Jody and Laura just said, MMT is fully supportive of this process. It's been great collaboration between MMT and PPACG and the providers to get where we are. That the specialized transit services provided by the nonprofits are really important in complementing all the services that Mountain Metro provides in the region and Fountain Transit provides as well. So, and PPACG being the designated recipient of the 5310 funds is a critical step in this process, in the consolidation process. And we appreciate this moving forward and be happy to answer any questions that the board would have.
Great, thank you, Craig.
Jill, I have one.
Norm, go ahead, please.
Thanks. This is really a good thing. I'm really fully supportive of it. Would this plan or the coordination also include any consideration of 5311 funds, work through the regional coordinating councils? Would embrace that outside the metro area?
Yeah.
So go ahead, Laura. You can answer.
I think I can answer that one. Okay. So currently, we are not seeking the 5311 funds for outside of the urbanized area. We know that is a relationship between the providers right now in our rural communities and CDOT. In talking to many of those providers, they have had a great relationship with CDOT. Glenn Krause, who is their representative for CDOT, has been a great resource to me. It may be something in the future that as we're starting this coordinating effort of funding, that it does make sense that it falls under PPACG, but at this time, we're not seeking that funding. But that's a great question. It is an opportunity for the future. And it's something that will continuously be in conversation as we move forward.
Yeah, maybe not the 5311 fund management, but at least coordination of the operational sides of the rural transit areas with the urban transit areas. Obviously, talking systems, not just budgets.
That's a great suggestion.
This is Craig Blewett again. I think, Laura, I think that the city of Cripple Creek has begun receiving some 5311 funds, I believe. So that is within our region, and that is an important element as well.
Exactly my point. Thank you, Greg.
Yes. So I have Ms. Hausman from Fountain Valley who would like to speak also. Are you there? Yes, I see you. You're on mute. Still muted. Still muted. Still muted. I see you trying.
It's not too often we have Jolene.
Can you hear me now?
We got you.
Okay. It's not very often I'm quiet. So thank you so much, Madam Chair. So I'm speaking on behalf of both Fountain Valley Senior Center in Vida and Silver Key. We did submit a letter of support for the board, and we are in agreement with Mountain Metro and Craig as well. We just want to let the board know that all the local nonprofits fully support the idea of transitioning the 53 TIN funds to PPACG. We're really excited at the potential of new innovative projects, such as the consolidated database that is effectively working since May, and as well as increasing capacity. We're going to see a lot of seniors age into the age group where they qualify for services, and this will just allow more funding in the region and more options to be able to best serve the most vulnerable citizens in our community, both in the senior services population as well as the disabled persons population. So we're really excited to partner with PPACG and just move this forward into the future to serve our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. It's really great to hear that all of our senior service providers are on board and supportive and working with Mountain Metro and are supportive of PPACG leading this effort. So, I mean, seems like we've been waiting a long time for this. So thank you, Andy, for leading this, and Jody. And I think if we don't have any more questions, I would appreciate a motion to approve the recipient status.
Yeah, I'd like to throw on my hat as the transit, whatever I am this year.
Whatever you are.
Fully support it and say, please vote yes.
Great,
that's my motion. Move to approve.
Anyone else? Second.
This is Norm in Teller County, second.
Thank you, Norm. I was also remiss in not mentioning Laura. Thank you, Laura, for coming in, hard charging, and really making this happen. So with that, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Are there any nays? Fabulous. Motion passes unanimously. Onward. We thought maybe
I appreciate you guys. This helps me move forward.
Yes, it does.
So thank you.
We have some light at the end of the tunnel. Okay, that completes our action items. We are on to our one informational item, traffic safety media campaign, my favorite topic. Who's leading this?
That would be me. Good morning. Jason O'Brien, Transportation Planner at PPACG.
Fabulous. Go ahead.
I'm going to give just a brief recap before I turn things over to our consultant, just because it's been a few months since we've talked about this. So originally, because of record-breaking traffic fatalities in 2018 in our region, last year we started asking what role the regional agency could play in helping to bring those numbers down. So stakeholder interviews that we had with member jurisdiction traffic engineers, county planners, and law enforcement identified a gap when it comes to dealing with driver choices, as opposed to infrastructure improvements and traditional enforcement. Based on that input, we recommended a traffic safety messaging campaign. That went to this board in February as a discussion item, and there was an action amending the project into our work program in May. And I want to say real quick that this is actually a timely issue, not just sort of the usual thing. Even though there's a little less traffic in some areas right now because of the pandemic, the data show that some of the behaviors and certain types of fatalities have actually gotten proportionally worse during that time. So the campaign is really going to address that as well. And with that, I'd like to introduce John Henry, president of DriveSmart Colorado, the consultant that was chosen to lead the project. For 15 years, John served as executive director of corporate communications in USAA's Mountain States region. He also helped oversee national communications for USAA's Property and Casualty Insurance Group. John retired from USAA, and today he consults on communications and public relations for political issues, nonprofit organizations, businesses, and government entities. He's also owned an advertising and public relations agency here in Colorado Springs, and he spent several years in public communications for the city of Colorado Springs. And with that, I will turn it over to John Henry.
Jason, thank you very, very much. And Madam Chair, good morning, and thank you for the time to be able to come before you and talk about this particular campaign. I'd like to introduce, it probably needs no introduction to some of you, Miley Gray is on the call this morning. Miley is the Executive Director of DriveSmart, a position she's held for 25 years. Miley has the passion, the drive, the enthusiasm, and many times the tears that it takes to be effective in injury prevention and in traffic safety. And I cannot thank Miley enough for her years and years of dedication and hard work. DriveSmart is the education element of traffic safety. Traffic safety is based upon 4 E's: engineering, enforcement, education, EMS. We are the education E. We derive a great deal of information from the engineering folks, from enforcement clearly, and even from EMS at times in terms of developing campaigns, ideas, concepts, messages, the tools of our trade in terms of conducting traffic safety. A very brief history of time. DriveSmart was founded in 1989 based upon a call to action from what I called at the time the 3 Marys on the Colorado Springs City Council. That would be Mary Ellen McNally, Mary Veith, Mary Lou Makepeace. In 1989, a small boy was on his way to school, walking. A little boy got a traffic signal that said walk, at the same time that a beer truck driver got a traffic signal that said go ahead. Little boys lose under those circumstances. The public outcry was massive. At the time, Colorado Springs, we were facing well below average buckle up rates, well above average alcohol involved fatality and serious injury accident rates. And motorcyclists, we were losing on an average of 1 to 2 a weekend, and very few, if any, were wearing helmets. Clearly, we had a serious problem. DriveSmart was founded, and I could go on for much of the morning about the activities and the hard work that has gone into this community traffic safety campaign, but we'll hold that for another day, please. I'd like to say thank you for the opportunity to work with PPACG on this campaign. Jason, you've been tremendous at leading us through and helping us guide us and give us counsel as to how the systems work and what the expectations were and the kinds of things that we needed to do to help make this campaign a success. So thank you. This campaign fits nicely into recent activity that DriveSmart has undertaken. Miley Gray, along with a member of our board of directors, who is an injury prevention specialist, now retired, conducted efforts around the state of Colorado and the southern portion of the state, working with county and municipal governments to try to increase buckle up rates around rural areas in the state. Not a tall order, but this campaign does fit nicely within that activity. Further, the campaign gives us an opportunity to directly address the effect of COVID in terms of what's happening in traffic safety right now. And there'll be a little bit more about that to come in the moments ahead. But I can tell you that just as COVID has been interlaced into virtually every discussion that we've had this morning that I've heard, traffic safety is not exempt from that whatsoever. In an earlier conversation was that, earlier comment was made that traffic safety knows no geographic bounds, and that is absolutely true. That is very, very well spoken indeed by a member of your group. This particular placement campaign will run through August. It's underway now into September, and it'll be ended when the political campaigns ramp up their advertising, which is beginning heavily now. And Jessica, thank you to you for running the slides. Could you please advance now to slide 2? Thank you. Our board of directors serves to advise and guide our work in concert with the Colorado Department of Transportation, CDOT, and its Office of Transportation Safety. We have a long-standing relationship with the OTS. Our board of directors, the DriveSmart Colorado board, is deeply concerned about this new normal that we are seeing for motorist behavior, not just in their respective jurisdictions, but also all across the country today. Law enforcement publications and popular media are full of stories about traffic infractions having gone absolutely through the roof during this time period. It is not unusual for our law enforcement agencies to report multiple tickets given during shifts for speeding in excess of 80, 90, 100 miles an hour on our area roads and highways. It's a significant difference. It's a significant change. And we are absolutely anticipating some scholarly research being taken to understand the psychology between this. What is the effect of COVID? Why is it driving these particular behaviors? And I'll be looking with great interest to see research on that in the time to come. Jessica, could you take me to slide 3, please? This campaign targets 3 deadly behaviors. First of all, distracted driving continues to be a broad public safety threat and a public concern. We've all seen it. We've seen people driving down the road and either talking on the phone or fidgeting with their entertainment device in their automobiles, talking with neighbors next to them in the car, or passengers next to them in the car, applying makeup, eating behind the wheel. We've all seen these things. Distracted driving continues to be a serious impact in terms of traffic safety. Substance-involved driving. With the advent of marijuana use in Colorado legally, our law enforcement partners are deeply concerned about this. The instance of multiple substances involved in driving is really quite significant these days. The crash rates for substance-involved driving are deeply concerning. Let's put it that way to our law enforcement partners in Drive Smart. And then we're going to underline for you briefly substance-involved motorcycle riding, because that is of significant interest and significant, and as Jason touched upon, that is one of the areas in which we are seeing a dramatic difference in numbers over the course of the short few months that we've been involved in this pandemic. Jessica, would you please go to the next slide? In terms of the creative construct for the campaign, we set for ourselves making the campaign impactful and attention-getting, but without the use of gore. We wanted it to be something that could go into people's computer screens and get in front of their eyes without creating concern and creating issues in and of the campaign itself for being overly shocking. We wanted to be mindful of maintaining acceptable production cost and advertising placement ratios. This is a generous contribution to the cause from PPACG, but I would not underline it as a significant expenditure in the world of advertising these days. So we were very mindful of maintaining that production cost and advertising placement ratio. And also we wanted for the campaign to be readily identified as being Colorado specific. And I think you'll see when Jessica hits the play button on the 3 ads that we're going to show you next, I think you'll see how we accomplished that, both graphically and in terms of the audio portion for this particular campaign. So with that, Jessica, could you please play us back the 3 ads? Thank you. We don't have the audio portion for the ads.
Let me see. Let me try it. One sec.
Thank you.
Now?
Don't text and drive. 1 in 5 distracted driving crashes result in serious injury or death. Be safe. Drive smart.
Did that play okay for you?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect.
Don't sell your future.
Oh, we've lost the audio on that one as well.
Why? No?
No, not quite. I'm wondering if you hit mute after you touch play, that might help.
We can hear it a little. It's just kind of low and muffled.
All right, let's try it one more time. Bear with me. We haven't played videos yet on here. So.
I imagine this is new.
Any better? How about I send the link in the chat for all the videos, and then you guys can watch them and have the link to them. Would that be acceptable?
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. Many
I will do
thanks.
that.
I appreciate it.
Sure, sorry.
Not to worry. This probably was something new to be encompassed, and I appreciate the effort. Thank you very much. As you could see from at least what you could see in the ads, we do have a strong Colorado visual in terms of license plate. The audio does talk about the Pikes Peak region. We did accomplish some what I would call fairly elementary but useful animation in terms of mashing together the telephone, the cell phone when it comes to the distracted driving ad, and then of course the beer can and the beer bottle associated with a motorcycle for the substance-free driving campaigns. That emphasizes the three messages that we want to try to get across: is the dangers of substances as they apply to motoring, and to motorcycle riding as well as the role that cell phones and other devices play in terms of distracted driving behind the wheel, which we all acknowledge is a serious and significant challenge. With that, Jessica, could you take me to slide 5, please? So in terms of advertising placement, next slide, we're focusing very, very heavily on social media for this particular campaign. That is because of a lack of affordable or acceptable television or radio time and billboard space during this point in time. This is a general election year. And as you've seen, as you're watching television and listening to your favorite radio station, political ads proliferate during this time of year. Broadcasters are required to sell bona fide candidates advertising time at their various lowest rate card cost, which means the time is snapped up by political campaigns. They extend to them the kinds of rates that Frank Azar or Phil Long would pay for advertising. And that is a means of fostering public communication during political campaigns. It is a good idea, but what it means is for other efforts, both commercial and informational, such as this campaign, we tend to shy away from public media, mass media during that period of time. The same applies to billboard space. They don't have the requirements to sell at a reduced rate, but political campaigns do capture the acceptable billboard space, the billboard space that is visible and useful during this period. And so we focused this campaign heavily on the social media. That decision was also driven by a dramatic increase in the use of social media during this COVID period. We're seeing numbers of 54% of respondents, 16 to 64, saying that they are spending more time in entertainment media on using their social media devices. And almost 45% of people are reporting spending much more time in terms of messaging back and forth with family members and colleagues and friends during this period of time. So clearly this is social media's time to shine. I'll be curious to see if that pattern continues going forward. And we anticipate that it will. We targeted specifically in terms of demographics, social media advertising to reach motor vehicle operators between the ages of 18 and 34 in El Paso, Teller, and Park counties. The social media campaign is targeted heavily toward that particular group. And then we overlaid on that a special emphasis on motorcycle operators. We broadened the reach for that particular campaign, that particular element of the campaign, to 18 to 55 to reflect the older profile of motorcycle operators. The broad campaign is targeted 18-34 adults. The motorcycle campaign is targeted 18 to 55 men. That is as a means of acknowledging the profile of motorcycle riding. And social media that we selected included Facebook, Instagram, many search engines, multiple search engines, and entertainment sites such as Spotify. And we'll be seeing the results of that campaign in short order. Jessica, you can take the slide out now and bring me back if you would. So the final report for the campaign will be available to you in October. We will be able to recap the numbers of impressions that we've received, the impact of the campaign, as well as a variety of other measurements that we will make available to you. Looking ahead, it's our understanding that there is an anticipation that this will be at least a 2-year commitment in order to test the concept of PPACG conducting some messaging to its audience within the 3-county area. And looking ahead, we would want to examine then the impact of mass media, whether we want to try to move to mass media, more mass media during this period of time, during the next element of the campaign. I would want to take a very, very deep look at the Park County area. Park County merits an examination in and of itself. Teller County, certainly a rural area, heavily influenced by Colorado Springs media. The same is not necessarily true in Park County. Park County is in the Denver metro, what's called ADI, or area of dominant influence from media. And we need to take a deep, deep look to see what people are reading, viewing, and listening to in Park County if mass media is going to be effective there. The local newspaper, the Fair Play Flume, I would want to take a deep look at that to see what its penetration looks like within the county. And then social media, South Park Bulletin, some other things that we know are strong social media in that area. I'd want to take a deeper look when we have more time to understand the impact of those and how we can encompass them within a messaging campaign to come. So with that, let me step back. Miley, have you any questions or additions to this, please?
No, I just wanted to, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to emphasize the fact that our traffic crashes in our entire region are just pretty much out of control right now. Our fatality rates are almost identical to where they were last year, if not higher in certain instances. For example, the motorcycle riders. The state is experiencing a 10% increase in motorcycle fatalities right now compared to last year. And remember, this is all has to do even during the time of the stay-at-home orders. So that basically just got erased and in fact just got amplified. So the fact that we are still, you know, we have a tendency right now, we're focusing so heavily on COVID discussions and health and safety of the COVID issue, which is terribly tragic and very disruptive to all of our lives. I want to just remind everybody that these traffic deaths don't have to happen either. There are very simple yet complicated ways to prevent them. And we all need to do our part to make sure that we all get home safely. I mean, we are also, you know, concerned about, we have our masks, you know, that we wear and everything, but then people go out the door and they don't wear their seatbelt. So it's just really important to keep in mind that Drive Smart appreciates so much the opportunity to be part of this campaign. And we're just super excited, and we're excited to see us working in conjunction with our law enforcement, our emergency medical services, everybody, the four E's of traffic enforcement. If we can effect a change, remember, this is long-term. This is not an immediate fix. And so we're just happy to be part of, to be chosen and to be part of it. So thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Miley. Two quick data points, and then we'll hand it back to you, Madam Chair, for questions. In in year to date through June 30, CDOT Region 2 numbers, motorcycle fatalities, 8 in 2019, 18 in 2020, 8 in 2019, 18 in 2020. An absolutely shocking number. And 1 week in July in the Colorado Springs metropolitan area here in the city limits of Colorado Springs, we recorded 5 fatalities in 1 week from motor vehicle accidents. Clearly, it's a serious, significant, and ongoing problem, and I commend PPACG for being willing to step up to this issue and try to make a difference. With that, Madam Chair, thank you so very much, and I'm very happy to take any questions.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Miley. I really appreciate everything you're doing and the data you're producing. I look forward to your report in October. Miley, I really appreciate you using the word crash. We've been trying to change terms around those words because it's not an accident. People should be paying attention, not texting or whatever they're doing, and really taking driving seriously. And I appreciate you using correct terminology. And John, I mean, I've noticed the significant rise in the traffic deaths, and we're also experiencing a lot of pedestrian deaths. Again, people are not paying attention, and we have more and more people out walking because they're trying to get some exercise during this time, and we need to be careful on the road. So we really look forward to your report. I do have a question on the chat from Sharon asking if we're doing anything as far as educating with our military bases. We know we have a lot of young, mostly men, who would love to buy those slick cars when they get their jobs and drive in our cities. And so are we doing anything to educate them and work with them as they are part of our communities?
The military installations are a key part of the Drive Smart steering committee that meets monthly and conducts campaigns for a variety of audiences. So the answer is a strong yes. And I would suggest that in a phase 2 of this campaign, we would like to take a look at a deeper outreach using media that reaches directly into the military installations. In a very recent piece of volunteer business on behalf of the Pikes Peak Regional Air Show, I have been involved in the National Museum World War II aviation here before its inception as a member of its board and later as a volunteer. We did significant work with the military installations to promote the air show and the museum. And there are very strong mechanisms to reach into that population in place for messaging. So that would be a wonderful concept to play in a phase 2 of this campaign. Thank you.
Well, might I be able to just interrupt just briefly?
Sure.
Okay, thanks. I do want you to know that Drive Smart also is funded by the Colorado Department of Transportation, and we have ongoing distracted driving, pedestrian safety, and older driver grants through the Colorado Department of Transportation. One focus is our military partners written right into our grants, and we have been throughout COVID actually invited on our installations to give presentations. When I say our, I'm talking about Drive Smart Colorado staff and some of our steering committee members. And one thing that we're doing, and I don't know if you guys can see this. Anyway, whoa, okay. It is a motorcycle ad that we have running all summer long in all 3 military newspapers, Air Force and Army. And it's not to sell motorcycles. It is motorcycles are out, be alert, save a life. So we've done this sort of thing ongoing throughout. So military is, just to reiterate, military is a huge, huge partner of ours.
That's great to know. We have a couple other comments. I do want to move on. I'm suddenly noticing the time, but Andy mentioned that he felt safer in DC than he does here. And I get that because we have these wide open spaces where everybody has the ability to drive as fast as they want. And so we have to slow everybody down. And so that's one of the reasons the city, I know, has the red light cameras. And let's see. And Norm was making a mention that the Sturgis motorcycle rally is coming to Teller County later this month. So hopefully we can keep all of our motorcyclists safe. Anything else before we move on?
Yes, Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Stan. Just a quick question. Obviously, the advertising campaign focused on, drug issues and drinking issues and distraction. But I'm actually just curious, and maybe there's not enough data to say one way or another. Do we have more accidents because of the construction that's going on our roads? We've got a lot of construction going on all over the place. So is that a contributor?
Madam Chair, may I?
Of course.
Thank you. Commissioner, it very well could be. I am not aware of any significant data on that at this point in time. I do know that insurance industry that is aware that during high construction periods, there does tend to be more crashes, albeit hopefully less serious because people, at least theoretically, are traveling at slower speeds. That isn't to say, though, that there isn't a clear and present danger to our highway workers, because there is. And we are all aware there have been several fatalities over the course of the intervening months and years that we've been doing this work on our roads and streets. So one would say intuitively, probably there is an impact. I am simply not aware of any research to support the effort.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any additional questions?
Yeah, my name is William Shaw from REMA. I would like to make a statement if I may.
Okay, go ahead.
Now, I work for Elbert County Road and Bridge as a sign tech. I'm out on the streets all the time. A week and a half ago, I had a momentarily conversation with the captain of the Elbert County Sheriff's Department in regards to some of the obstacles that they're facing in regards to added risks on the road and traffic incidents. Our law enforcement has been put under closer restrictions because of COVID-19 to minimize contact with the general public. And I believe that the general public has figured this out. And people are driving nuts. I mean, they drive crazy anyway. You know, I drive a truck with blinky lights all around, and I sit on the side of the road, and people don't even slow down whenever they pass me. They'll fly past me on a dirt road doing 60 miles an hour and not even give it a second thought. The concern that people have for other safety, I think, has greater minimal because law enforcement is not getting the support from the public that they need to do their job effectively. Is there any way this campaign can run in conjunction with our sheriffs across Southern Colorado to help promote this? Because our sheriff's department needs all the support they can get. These guys are out there literally putting their life on the line just over a traffic stop. And with COVID-19 being politicized like it is, they're scared to go up just because they might catch COVID and die, you know?
Right.
I mean, is there any other suggestions we may have to work in conjunction with our sheriff's department to help promote this and bring public awareness and safety to a greater limelight than COVID-19?
Right. I think we can continue to have these conversations. If you noticed early on, the sheriff and the I know the chief of police are on the Drive Smart board, and so I know that they are at the table and they are working on these issues. But it's good that you're bringing this up and that they are aware of these issues right now. Okay, are there any other questions? Okay, thank you, everyone. That completes our informational items, and we are going to move on to reports. Our first report is military. I'm not sure I saw any of our military folks on the line today. Is anybody here? I think they're all.
Hi, this is Colonel Jim Smith from Peterson.
Oh,
can you hear me?
Good morning. Sorry, Jim. Colonel. Go ahead.
That's all good. Thanks. And I had my video off, so you probably didn't recognize I was military. But just wanted mostly to introduce myself this morning. I know we've had Mr. Ron Jeffrey often attending on behalf of Schriever Air Force Base. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the fact that as part of the Space Force stand-up, there was some reorganization that occurred on 24 July. And so for everyone's awareness, we separated our operational organizations from our base organizations and the command of the bases. So we now have some organizations, 9 organizations called Space Deltas that are executing the space mission. and they're tasked to focus deeply on executing space and not worried all about running the bases. And then we combined the command of Peterson, Schriever, and Cheyenne Mountain under one command known as the Peterson Schriever Garrison. And I have the fortunate privilege to be that commander. So look forward to continue to be able to work with all the austere individuals in part of this group and a part of the government around the community. I know I've met some of you as you've come out to Schriever in the past, but now we'll have opportunity both to interact for issues or questions or opportunities as they relate to Cheyenne Mountain or Peterson as well. So happy to be on board and to make acquaintance with all of you, and look forward to continuing to partner over the next year. I'll answer any questions if anybody has any. Otherwise, I'll just say nice to meet everybody and look forward to continuing to work together.
Well, welcome, Colonel Smith, and we are glad to have you here, and we appreciate the update.
Thank you.
Any other of our military folks on the call? Okay. So our TAC, HAC, and MAC are all here. Just hello?
Hi, sorry, this is Melissa Porter from the Air Force Academy.
Hello, Melissa.
Having trouble. I called in and I was having trouble unmuting. So I do have an update from the Air Force Academy. We began classes today. All 4,400 cadets are at the Academy, and classes began today. They are doing both online and in person for social distancing purposes. In addition, I think most of you have probably seen on the news the Mountain West has postponed fall sports. So that obviously has an impact on the Academy sports program. And we are hoping that we will be able to resume with our competitions in the spring. And then lastly, Lieutenant General Richard Clark has been confirmed as the next Academy superintendent. He is a 1986 graduate of the Academy, and he also served as our commandant back in 2010 to 2012. So we're excited to get him on board. The change of command date has yet to be set. We are looking at potentially late September for that, so more information to follow. And that's all I have unless there are questions.
Thank you, Melissa. Great news to hear the classes are starting. I'm really sorry about sports, so sorry. And very big welcome to General Clark. I know we're all anxious to meet him in the community. And I have to say it's getting harder and harder for me to hear about what year these generals graduated from the Academy, because they're getting very close to my own age. And when I was in the Air Force, it seemed like they were so old. So okay, that's just my sidebar there. Thank you for that. Okay, one more chance for our military folks. Okay. We'll move on to CDOT monthly report. I did see Richard on the line earlier. I don't know if he's still there.
Yes, I'm still here, and Shane is on as well. So I'm just going to kick it off a little bit with some more general stuff, and then Shane's going to go into some more project-specific information. So, you know, the one thing I just wanted to bring up to this group, and, you know, you're probably going to ask me why I'm even bringing it up, but, you know, I think most folks are aware we have a fire in Glenwood Canyon on I-70. And so I-70 has been closed for a couple of days now. I'm not sure exactly when it's going to reopen at this point. You know, the fire was burning right up next to the road, so we need to do some bridge inspections, some other different things. But the reason I'm bringing it up and why it's pertinent to this group is detour routes. So some of the member agencies involved in this group, you know, could potentially be affected. You know, we're anticipating seeing increased traffic on US 285, you know, potentially on US 24. You know, even folks coming out of Denver down I-25 and maybe trying to cut down 115 over to 50 to get around the fire. So, you know, we're trying to pay close attention to what's happening with traffic and trying to put in place some, you know, potential mitigation plans. You know, for example, on Fairplay, you know, monitoring that signal and how many backups we're getting at that signal at Fairplay and Highway 9, and trying to control the traffic and maintain good traffic flow through the area. You know, additionally, trying to, you know, look at staging some emergency response or tow vehicles, courtesy patrol type vehicles to be able to, you know, move incidents off the roads quickly so we don't continue to affect some of these smaller 2-lane roads that could be seeing some increased volumes, particularly starting today. I think we've seen historically the weekend camping traffic usually starts to pick up around Wednesdays. And so we're anticipating maybe some problems, but we're trying to analyze that, be prepared for it, and working towards that to make sure it does, minimize the impact as much as we possibly can. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Shane unless folks have questions for me about the fire in particular.
Great, thank you, Richard.
Okay. Well, good morning. Just a few updates on projects. We don't have a whole lot other to add, but with the MAMSIP project, we are currently in negotiations with the contractor for the State Highway 94 first package. More to come on that and see how that negotiation goes before we get under construction. So that is currently underway. On the US 24 surface treatment up to Chipeta Park, the majority of the paving has been completed and striping has been completed. I think we're basically taking care of punch list items at this time. 24 out east, the passing lane section just west of Peyton is now open, and that project is well underway to completion, and so that one's about to be wrapped up, as well as the 94 intersection at Peyton Highway. That is close to being wrapped up as well. And then the last update I'll have is the ramp metering. We are currently doing testing on the South Academy ramp, and for signals and seeing how that is functioning. So more to come as we progress through the ramps that have been installed and constructed so far. Any questions for me?
Questions for Shane or Richard? I have to say that fire just looks terrible out west. It's just shocking. Sorry about that. Okay, it appears we don't have any questions. We can move on to STAC.
Good morning, everyone. Norm Steen, Teller County, your STAC representative. The STAC met last on July 10th, 2020. And just a couple updates. The predominance of the discussion was on the budget impacts, mostly from COVID. Two categories of impacts. One is the general fund, state general fund. As you know, there's general fund transfers that are made into CDOT. 2 years of suspensions of $125 million each. And then the HUTF is with the fewer vehicles out driving. Obviously, there's less fuel purchased and huge impact then on HUTF receipts. The total impact we expect on HUTF is $62.9 million, $63 million basically. CDOT's responded with budget cuts in 3 major areas, but are still about $13 million short of filling that gap, that $63 million gap. The consensus was or urged that the Transportation Commission ought to fill that from TC contingency funds. In general impacts, obviously 3 hours of rather technical language, and I'm going to cover even touch on most of that. But in Region 2, 2 phases of projects. The I-25, Highway 16, and Highway 24 gap are still going to proceed under a Phase 1 project list. Also, outside the region, outside the MPO, there's larger impacts. And I was not real clear, but I think that in Phase 2, Region 2, and Richard maybe can correct me, but I think that Powers Research $44 million project did make it into Phase 2 for continuation. So that's really good news. He's over kind of scrambling to called the add back campaign to get projects added back into the budget after being cut so drastically. So broad discussion on how a project could be funded and how to proceed. Does any of our CDOT folks have comments of clarification?
Yeah, I'd like to make a couple of comments, Commissioner Steen.
Yeah, thanks.
So first and foremost, you mentioned Phase 1. So Phase 1 is essentially real money at this point in time. So under Senate Bill 267, I think most folks are aware how we're paying for those projects is through COPs. And so those COPs were advertised. We actually got very good rates, and we actually got some good bond premium returned to us on those COPs. And so it's allowing us to actually program some additional projects today. Unfortunately, the Region 2 share of that is, it's not a huge amount of money, and the Region 2 share of that isn't large enough to, fund some of our bigger projects in the PPACG area. The Phase 2 that Commissioner Steen was mentioning is, on in anticipation of getting potentially year 3 of Senate Bill 267 out of the state legislature, and or a stimulus package coming from the federal government. We were asked to put together a list, assuming that whole package would be around $500 to $525 million. And under that scenario, we've planned and laid out what our expectations are for projects. And, that is the first step that we have to be able to afford to build, large and nice projects, like Powers Research Interchange. And that is at the top of our list if we do end up getting that money. But I just wanted to clarify that money does not exist today. So that project is not ready to advertise right now.
Got it. Thank you. Yeah, it was not real clear. They were optimistic, but yeah, no funds. So the Powers Research still remains the top of our list. But things get hard when there's not enough money. Now people start having to make some really hard choices, and the stack's been engaged in that. So unless you have any questions, that's all I have.
Thank you, Norm. Are there any questions from the board? Okay, our last report. Director.
Just real quickly, as a related topic, I think, and Irv, if you're still on the call.
No, he signed off a bit ago. So.
Oh, did he? Okay. He had to drop off at 10. I apologize.
Okay. Well, Richard, you can maybe confirm this. I think that the next Transportation Commission, the state transportation plan, will be adopted. So that will end the year effort that CDOT had gone through. So I believe that's going to be on the agenda for whatever the Wednesday is, the 26th.
Next week.
Yeah, next week. So that will end that process.
John, I think the STIP was adopted by the commission, the 2024, I believe.
This is the long range plan.
Oh, got it. Yes.
Okay, thank you, John. Any other questions? Okay, then yes, we'll move on to the executive director report. Andy.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple items real quick. One housekeeping item. Would like to have our next board workshop meeting held in person. That would be Friday, September the 4th. So we're trying to make sure we've got the logistics to make that work. Not sure that we can handle the whole board in person with a hybrid setup, but we can certainly do that, I'm sure, for the workshop to at least have a handful of people on in our conference room and then others zooming in as needed. So more details to follow, but we're working on that so we can at least get partially back together in September.
Andy, just an FYI, the Colorado Springs City Council is meeting that Friday since Monday is a holiday.
Oh.
That meeting starts at 10, so we could feasibly meet before that, but I just wanted to let you know that.
Good tip. Thank you. Good to know that.
Holidays.
Yes, yes. Okay, we may need to look at some different arrangements, but thank you. Second item I wanted to mention is just FYI, our water quality management plan, our regional area-wide plan that the board adopted last November. We had a hearing in front of the State Water Quality Control Commission this past Monday, and they unanimously approved our regional plan. So just wanted to let you know about that. They really had some very complimentary remarks as well, that our region took that plan on. Some regions have been turning that responsibility back over to the state and PPACG, so they're really glad that we took that on. And also wanted to specifically thank Samantha Bailey, our environmental planner, for shepherding that plan through about a 2-year process and working with our local water quality control management committee here. So really pleased to get that wrapped up. Third item I wanted to mention is that we've been having conversations, Jody and I, and Chair Gabler to some extent as well, with the city, members of the Commission on Aging that the city operates. We've also had conversations, including yesterday, with some members of the Innovations in Aging Board as well, and really centered around potentially moving, if you will, the city's Commission on Aging from the city over under the umbrella of PPACG within the AAA. And it's something that we're still exploring, but I think we're going to bring this to the board for further discussion and an update in September, really with the notion of perhaps expanding the scope of it, so it's not just a city commission, but more broadly focused. And it's something that, given our mission in the AAA, we could give that commission sort of a broader platform and a bigger megaphone, if you will. They deal with a lot of policy issues around senior needs throughout the city, but there's interest in expanding that beyond just city needs, like I said. So we're going to probably bring that to the full board next month and talk about some possibilities about making that transition. We're excited about the possibilities. We're still trying to figure out how that would work within the AAA and not be redundant with what we do through the RAC and some other committees that we have. So just wanted to give you a heads up because there have been some conversations in the public domain about that, especially at the Commission on Aging meetings over at the city. So pleased to announce that. And then finally, the last thing I wanted to mention is it's something that has sort of been in the back of my mind a little bit for the past year or so is that I'd like the board to think about maybe something we could start this year is perhaps giving out an award to somebody throughout the region, maybe an elected official or another community member that really exemplifies regional cooperation and communities working together, which is basically our motto at PPACG. I've been given that a lot more thought more recently with the passing of our friend and colleague, Neil Levy. And what I'd like to do is maybe engage with the executive committee and see how we can maybe kind of marry those thoughts up of doing something to remember and honor the legacy of Neil. Neil was a gentleman and was all about collaboration, and his spirit of collaboration was always strong. So I think there's a way we can maybe do something as far as a regional recognition that that we as a body would give out on an annual basis, which I think is long overdue, and do so in memory of Neil's legacy and impact as well. So I just wanted to put that out there. I know that Mayor Carr from Woodland Park had to drop off, and I've been trying to connect with Mayor Carr, so I certainly will do that before we bring this back to the board for consideration. But just wanted to put that out there as well and let you know it's something I'd like to explore with the executive committee. So with that, the questions, that's all I have.
Thank you. I'm just so happy that you came up with this idea to honor Neil in this way, and I look forward to having more conversations about that and the Age Coalition or Age Commission, excuse me. Are there any questions from the board at this point on Andy's report? I guess everybody's fading. Okay, before we leave, let's move on to member entities. Announcements. I'm not going to go around, but if anybody has an announcement, please jump in.
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Stan. I do have one item.
Okay.
And many of you may know this, but I think it's really important that we spread this as far as we possibly can. But yesterday we officially opened a additional COVID-19 test site in the Colorado Springs area. There's some interesting and unique aspects of this test site. First of all, the testing is free. And previous to this, people had to pay something on the order of about $100 to take the test. And this, while the testing is encouraged for anybody that believes they're experiencing COVID symptoms, it is also for anybody that thinks they may have been exposed and doesn't have symptoms. And I've been assured by El Paso County Public Health, regardless of where you are, whether you're symptomatic or asymptomatic, no one will get turned away. And I think that's really, really important for our community. Now, there's no insurance or referral required. They are going to have resources there for Spanish-speaking population to make sure that we really have a proper reach out to all of our communities here. There is pre-registration recommended at www.elpasocountyhealth.org, but it is not required. So you can literally just drive over there and you will get a test. The test site will be open Tuesday through Saturday from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. So for people that do work during the day, there are evening hours that people can go get a test. And the location is at the Citadel Mall at 680 Citadel Drive, and it's in the parking lot. So it's an outdoor test area. It's in the parking lot just south of the JCPenney. So I would encourage anybody that has any concerns whatsoever, or if you work in a work environment where you might have a higher risk of exposure, please go there, go get your test. It's free of charge. This is a great addition to the community. And I'd like to give a shout out to the city of Colorado Springs, who's paying for 25% of this. The county's paying 25%, and the state is paying 50% of the total costs. They have a throughput capacity of 750 tests a day at this site. So it's a lot of people that they can test. And that's my one announcement. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Stan. I appreciate you making a mention of that. Our mayor brought it up yesterday, and that he was going to get a test at this at the ribbon cutting for the new testing center, which is in the heart of my council district. So I'm very excited about that. Okay, I see that Holly has a question or a comment. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Holly.
Yes, thank you. I've enjoyed the meeting. We have, beginning, I think, this weekend or maybe on Monday, we are going to take another $7.5 million of the CARES money we got to help stimulate the economy. People can apply for that with individual grants. There will be a press release tomorrow, and we definitely want you in El Paso County to get the word out to all businesses who may not have had the opportunity the first time around to apply for something. We just want to get that down into small businesses as much as possible.
Great. Thank you, Holly. I was on a call yesterday. I'm on the Downtown Development Authority, and so many of those downtown businesses are hanging by a thread. So I'm sure this will be very welcome news for them. Okay, I see Norm has a comment. Go ahead, Norm.
Yeah, thanks. You know, each year we've had our motorcycle veterans rally up in Teller County, Cripple Creek. That has followed the Sturgis rally. There's over 200,000 people now gathering in Sturgis, South Dakota. A piece of those peel off and head to Teller County. Although we have not approved, the city of Cripple Creek has not approved the local event for hosting for in a formal event. We do still expect several thousand motorcycles to come through Teller County beginning on Friday, August 21. The city of Woodland Park will host a coordinated motorcycle ride from Woodland Park High School to the Cripple Creek downtown area on beginning at 9 a.m. on Saturday, August 22nd. So if you're planning on visiting Teller County on that weekend, I would suggest watch for cyclists. They will be everywhere. So although we do expect some COVID risk, our understanding is that most of the cycles some are staying in local hotels. Those are all completely booked, but our expectations that those will just continue to drive on through Teller County with a wave. But it's a no formal event. Leave it at that. Thanks.
Thank you, Norm. Pretty exciting. Okay, Sharon, go ahead.
Yeah, we passed a resolution last night to also expand our COVID funding for the city of Fountain. So we're expanding it to nonprofits within the city, home-based businesses, mobile trailer parks such as food trucks, animal groomers, commercial landlords, and professionals that rent booth space. So see the city website or call the city manager's office for those details. Bear in mind, we do double check with the county. So if you're applying for the same funds from the city, you need to apply for different funds or from the county. So we're trying, but expanding that from just our brick and mortar stores out to more home-based people, again, trying to get the money down to the people that are really struggling.
Great news. Thank you, Sharon. Appreciate Fountain. Okay, any other comments from board members before we adjourn? Okay, well, I appreciate all of you being here today. Andy, do you have anything else before we? Okay, then with that, I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thank you everyone for taking the time today, and I wish you all a great Wednesday.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.